What's up, boys? Another slow day in the media news when it comes to our Washington Commanders. But before we get into some of the small storylines about today, we will get into the particulars. Obviously, if you've been here before, thank you. Welcome back. Please join us every week as we do one of these podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well as on all audio platforms. In addition to that, you can catch us on all major socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I believe we're also on Blue Sky now. And then, of course, the mothership, as John likes to call it, at bgobsession.com. So come and hang out, mix it up. The board was absolutely a buzz today, obvious reasons. But first, we'll point out a couple things before we get into the meat and potatoes here. The appetizer. De'Ami Brown goes to the Jags, $10 million up to $12 on a one-year deal. Jeremy Chin goes to the Raiders, 2 years, $16 million, if I'm remembering correctly. Those are the two kind of big ones of the losses so far. I think Chin over De'Ami personally. I'm actually a little surprised. I'd have paid Chin $8 million a year at AV. That's just my opinion. What say you, gentlemen?
I'd have ponied up $8 million a year for Chin. Now that's without knowing what else this team has planned. And they obviously dropped a couple of bombshells today that none of us expected that factor into that dollar figure, right? And so maybe in their minds they didn't have $8 million a year to pay Chin, and maybe they've got a guy they like just as well or nearly as well who will be significantly cheaper. I don't know. But yeah, I kind of expected the team to hang on to Chin. Once they traded for Debo, I kind of expected them to let Brown test the market. And if they weren't happy with the number, then let him go. And I guess they weren't happy with the number. I mean, I got to tell you, I wouldn't have been happy if we'd given De'Ami upwards of $12 million like the Jaguars did. That wouldn't have sat well with me, with us already paying McLaurin and Samuel. So
the safety market is sometimes a little bit tricky as well. I find that occasionally there are guys that can be found in free agency at the safety position for a little bit of a discounted price. Now, granted, $8 million is not huge, but like Bob said, who knows? There might be some sort of other plan there to be able to get someone at a potentially cheaper rate.
Yeah, I think I almost put it on the board today, because I was looking at a mock draft, and I'm wondering if they're looking at safety at 29. And I said that, and I would have said it before the Tunsil trade and before the Kinlaw addition, thinking, I wonder if they're going to look elsewhere, because this is not a particularly top-heavy tackle draft. This is not a particularly top-heavy edge draft, but there's depth there. So I was wondering if maybe, and we can get into this in the draft, but a guy like Xavier, is it Watts out of Notre Dame, is slotted in that early 30s. If they were going to decide to go that route, and if we were going to see moves. So it doesn't totally shock me that Chin's gone, but at the number, 2 years, $16 million, I don't know. I think I might have wanted to try to run that back, but maybe they. I mean, who knows? In Adam Peters and company, we trust. They might have seen things that made them decide that they wanted to move on or whatever. So
Malachi Starks,
what?
who's the safety from Georgia, he's in that range. I'm just glancing at one mock draft real quick.
Xavier Watts, I think, is his name, from Notre Dame.
I haven't seen Watts anywhere in this particular one, just rolling it back. But anyway, yeah, there's, that's a typical spot to pick up a fairly good safety, right? When you start talking about the bottom end of round one, now you're talking about guys that want a potential serious guard, a potential serious safety. not the glamour high-end positions quite often. So that's a possibility, Derek. Maybe they are looking at that.
The other question as well is there somebody on the roster? Do they have potentially somebody on the roster that they feel currently can fill that position that Chin was playing? I don't know
Did
the
we
answer.
draft Hampton? Hampton?
did. Yeah.
Hamilton.
I think it's Hampton, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah,
have
he spent
Hampton
the
and we
year-
have Owens as well.
Oh, Owens. I forgot about Owens, who was a 7th round pick that was flashing, especially in special teams, and he was kind of all over the field. I forgot about Owens.
I think we also still have Butler under contract.
Yep.
Forrester is a free agent, right?
Mhm.
And Reeves is under contract this year still too, and technically a safety.
Is he, or is he free agent?
No, they signed him last year to 2 years.
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple different options there, and maybe that was a luxury above anything else. So who knows? But the bigger news of the day that we can get into, free agent signing, Javon Kinlaw goes to a 3-year, $45 million deal, AAV of $15 million a year. And obviously the big trade of the day, Laramie Tunsil coming back from Houston. The exact terms of the trade are Laramie Tunsil and a 4th are coming back for, and I'm going to go by memory, I'm not reading my screen, 3rd and a 7th in 25, which is this upcoming draft, and a 2nd and a 4th in 26, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not a second. Was it a second?
I'm pretty sure
a second next year. Yes.
a 2, 3, 4, 7 is what we gave up.
Yeah. I don't like the second next year, but oh well.
Well, I'm thinking, and I would generally tend to agree with you, but at 29, you're not getting a premium tackle. He's under contract for 2 years. He's actually only a cap number of $21.5 million this year because some of the money is falling back on Houston because it's bonus money. I imagine they look at maybe tacking on another year or two at the end of this, maybe even before this season starts.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is kind of the price you're going to pay for. I mean, he's a top 5 offensive tackle in the NFL right now. You know, like, you're not going to just find that guy on the street.
And I guess technically being a 2nd round pick next year, that has the value of a 3rd round pick.
This year.
Yeah.
The other thing with 29 that we were talking about, how hard is it to flip 29 for a 2 and a 2?
I don't know.
You know?
Maybe. Yeah. Depending upon who's there and who wants them.
Right. But anyways, to the point, the player, Laramie Tunsil. How you feeling, Paul? You're the O-line guy.
I'm quite excited about that move. More of that move compared to the Kinlaw move. Not that I don't like the Kinlaw move or don't see some positives in it, but I'm quite excited about the Laramie Tunsil trade. Let's face it, in 2 off seasons, so last year and now this year, we have addressed arguably the 2 most important positions on a football roster, your quarterback and your left tackle. As you said, Derek, we have easily a top 5 left tackle in terms of pass protection. Over and above everything that we want to talk about in terms of free agency and who we want to bring in and who we want to retain and who we don't want to bring back, over and above all of that is Jaden Daniels. And our success this coming year and in future years will all be dictated based on the progress that he makes. And I see the Tunsil move as being a move made with an eye towards ensuring that Jaden Daniels can maintain the elite level that he played at last year. If he has any sort of regression this year, it doesn't matter what we do elsewhere in free agency. It will likely fall apart, and we won't have the season that we put together a year ago in 25. So we need to make sure, over and above everything else, that Jaden Daniels continues to ascend. And I love the fact that we have prioritized that by going out and getting a premier left tackle. It is a great move in every way imaginable. When we think back to Trent Williams, Adam Peters went and got Trent Williams at 31 years old, traded for him. He brought San Francisco to back-to-back NFC Championship games, and I believe a Super Bowl appearance since making that Trent Williams trade. So it had a huge, huge impact on that organization. And again, this is all about Jaden Daniels continuing to develop, and this is great in that regard. So I love that move in every way imaginable.
Yeah, I'm pretty tickled with it. I went and watched some video. I went and looked at some. I'll tell you what, Brent Baldinger loves this guy. Brent Baldinger is absolutely in the tank for this guy. If you go watch his YouTube clip, he's got like a 10-minute video out there about how good this guy is, and he shows nothing but this, but him against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's just burying them. He what'd he say? He'd watched 2 full seasons of tape on the guy and never seen him on the ground once. he just doesn't go down. Defensive players don't win against him. Multiple ratings have him like the second best offensive tackle in pass protection in the NFL over the last 4 years. That's mind-boggling to me that we picked this guy up. I think a lot of the value in this trade we won't know for sure how well we did until we know how long this guy's going to play. If he plays here through the end of Jaden Daniels' rookie contract, so 4 years, I think everybody's going to be thrilled with this. If something weird happens over the next 18 months to 2 years and he decides after 2 years in Washington at 31 years of age to hang this thing up, I'm not sure anybody gets thrilled about this trade. Depending upon whether or not there's another Lombardi in the cabinet, right? If there's a Lombardi in the cabinet, then all kinds of things change. All sorts of
there's a lot that gets forgiven.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of stuff changes at that point in time. I'm much more excited about Tunsil than I am Kinlaw. I'm looking at Kinlaw. So I went to Pro Football Focus and looked at Kinlaw, and then they've got that compare feature, right? Or maybe it's Pro Football Reference. Sorry. And they've got that compare feature, and you can type in somebody else's name. So for shits and giggles, I put in John Allen. We got a poor man's John Allen for $3 million a year less. He's younger.
A younger poor man's John Allen for $3 million or less with 3 years of control.
Yes, but I don't know. It feels like we overpaid, but that's me right now. And maybe this is what it took to get him in this market. We've definitely got to have the space eater, and that's exactly what he is. I mean, Newton and Payne effectively play the same position. Can Newton play Allen's position? Yes. Is he better at Payne's position? Yes. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Don't get my comment wrong. I'm skeptical like you are, but I have to lean on. These are the same conversations we were having last year with Ertz.
Yep.
And Eckler. And Wagner. You know what I mean? We were wondering if they had they I guess those guys had peaked higher than Kinlaw has.
Yeah.
But we were wondering does Peters and company think they're going to get something out of these guys that somebody else couldn't? And ultimately, I think that's what we saw with the Kinlaw. And I don't know. I think we could see this thing go a couple different ways. I think we could. I'm not convinced Kinlaw is going to stay inside. I think he's going to move. People say I've seen him described multiple times as a versatile defensive lineman, and he is big. He's 6'5", 320. So I'm not saying he's going to be an edge pass rusher, but I could see that guy playing multiple techniques, especially when you want to go heavy. And I guess I say all that to say I hope they're right, because I too am a little skeptical with the amount of money and the commitment. I mean, you pay a guy 3 year, $45 million. You got plans for him. He's not just let's bring this guy into camp and see if we can get something out of him. Like you've already formulated how you're going to work your defense around that guy, or work him into your defense.
To me, 3 years, $45 million for a defensive tackle, you've got him penciled in as a starter.
Yeah.
You've got him penciled in right next to Daron Payne as the starter day one. And I don't know. I look down this list and I know what Dan Quinn and Joe Witt want out of their defensive front. This guy's got 9.5 sacks in 5 years. That's it. John Allen has 42 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I understand the cap hit, and I understand the fact that John is 30 years old, and that's a lot of wear and tear on a body down there in the trenches. But I'm not saying it was a bad move. I'm just saying right this minute, I don't see what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are seeing, I guess is what I'm saying. Of course, that's why they're where they are. And I'm sitting in a chair on a Monday night from my guest bedroom talking about what they did today. So,
Bob, I'm going to try to spin the positive on it.
Go for it.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend to say that I loved it, but at the same time, I kind of get it. You guys both alluded to the fact that he's 3 years younger than John Allen. He's a poor man's John Allen. That being said, and this is the one positive that I can kind of extract from the whole situation. To me, he kind of sounds like a player that has room to ascend and grow. A season ago, by all accounts with the Jets, was his best pro season. John Allen at this stage in his career, I think we've already seen the best of him.
For sure. Agreed.
So a player like Kinlaw, I think, still has some of that untapped potential and room to grow. They're obviously taking a risk. And they obviously have a lot of faith in him that he can continue to grow. But I think that's the positive spin, and that's the positive takeaway from the whole situation with him.
Fair enough.
I will say one other thing is is he the poor man's John Allen? Because let's be real, John Allen was not a space eater, right? His primary benefit was pass rush. He was decent at rush defense. And look, Kinlaw's metrics do not warrant out being big on rush defense either. In fact, he's not even, that's not even where he's known as being better. So it does raise the question about what's the why. What are they seeing? What are they seeing that nobody else is seeing? So I think that's something to think about. But he's not. I think he fits a different role than anybody else on the team. Like this guy, you know what I mean? And maybe they see the physical ability that this guy can take the center and the guard and just you know what I mean? Just eliminate them. Majority of the time. And is that where they're seeing a lot of the difficulties in our rush defense? That even though he doesn't grade out well in rush defense, they're not asking him to be the run defender. They're asking him to be, a piece of the puzzle so that Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu and our safeties can be playing downhill.
Yeah.
I'm speculating. Again, I think that's a big contract. It makes you wonder based on what we've seen. You have to believe that they think that they know. Well, they don't think they know. They know that they have a plan. I think, and it was worth $15 million a year to have him on this roster.
I do. The other thing that jumps out at me is last year we didn't give out anything longer than 3 years, and only a couple of guys got 3-year contracts. This year, right out at the gate, the first free agent from another team, we drop a 3-year contract.
Not only that, we signed Bates to a 3-year deal, a multi-year deal. We signed, we Laramie Tunsil's under control for 2 more seasons, and I would imagine that there's a deal coming for him also.
Yeah, I kind of figured that they're probably looking to try and extend him pretty quickly. That was my assumption. Which probably means that his number will go up a little bit, because right now Houston's eating all the guaranteed money. So
not only, I think his number will go down in 25, and it'll probably go up in 26, and then add at least another year on the back end of it. Well, those are the 2 big moves. Little quick free agents, just a re-signing recap for anybody who might not have heard. Obviously, John Bates on a multi-year deal. We brought back Tressway on a 1-year deal. Brought back Bobby Wagner on a 1-year deal. Brought back Zach Ertz on a 1-year deal. The tight end room is staying intact. Ertz, Bates, and Sennett are going to be on the roster entering the season. I think that these moves mean that we are not looking to draft with any real or sign with any real commitment to anybody at tight end. I think wide receiver is still obviously on the table because we traded for Debo. He's only under contract for 25. I think wide receiver is still a priority because right now we only have 3 under contract, which is crazy to think about. And then obviously the last position is interior alignment. I think that we've talked about. One other thing, though, that this Tunsil move does is I think now you put Tunsil at left tackle and you get better elsewhere with Coleman. So you can either put him at left guard and he upgrades that, or you could even put him at right tackle and move on from Wiley and free up some more money. So what do you guys think about those position groups as still being, even though we might have addressed them, do you still think that those are priorities, or do you think we're set? You think our O-line is set?
I'm going to let Paul go first because this O-line is kind of his baby. So
I personally don't think that we are set along our offensive line. I think my philosophy. You can't have enough of those guys. If Coleman goes to guard, you're assuming that yes, we're going to be stronger at guard. But then, are you confident that Wiley's going to be able to hold down right tackle? I still think you need to bring another body in on that offensive line. You have to also take into consideration Sam Cosmi. I know we're being told that he's going to eventually come back from his injury and be able to recover effectively, but he sustained a pretty serious injury. You don't know what his performance level is going to be at. You don't know if he's going to regain his form. You need to have another body. I was arguing a while back in one of our threads that I made a comment that I think we need 3 or 4 offensive linemen. That might have been pushing it a little bit too much, but yes, I definitely do feel we need another body on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to need another, I'm with Paul. I don't think we quit here. The question is whether or not it's draft or whether it's, I'm just looking because I think, Lucas is a free agent this year. So we're losing Lucas right now. We haven't re-signed him. I think what we're probably looking at, if you put my feet to the fire and made me, gamble with it, I'd say that the opening day roster is probably set at this point in time for the opening day starting lineup for offensive line is probably set at this point in time. I think it's Tunsil and Coleman as your tackles. I think it's Allegretti and probably Wiley in for Cosme to start the season as your guards, and Biotic at center. And I think the team would probably be pretty thrilled with that. Allegretti played pretty well last year. Biotic, we talked about incessantly during the season. I think everybody recognizes his importance at this point in time, especially to Jaden, as he helps tremendously with calling those protections and whatnot. It's just kind of a different world. But I think our backup center was a free agent this year. I know Cornelius Lucas is a free agent. So we're going to have to bring some bodies in at some point in time, if nothing else, just to fill out the room, right? The room's got a couple of empty chairs in it. Maybe over time, Coleman becomes that swing tackle. Maybe he's normally the right tackle, but if something happens to whoever's playing left tackle, he can, slide over and fill in for a few games. Maybe he picks up experience while Tunsil's here playing right tackle and becomes that long-term left tackle afterwards. I don't know. But I don't expect us to do a lot in terms of high-end stuff. I don't think the high draft pick goes to the offensive line anymore. I wouldn't have bet on that yesterday, though. I think today that 29 pick goes somewhere else, and maybe even that second-round pick. Maybe we don't pick up an offensive lineman. Now we've got, 2 picks in the 4th round? Oh, you're the draft. Have you gone and looked at what our...
I believe we have a second, we have a 4th. We don't have multiples in any round at this point.
The 7th. Yeah, we have 2 7s still.
Right, outside of the 7th.
Oh, did we? So we didn't have a 4th before today. The 4th we picked up from Houston replaces the one we gave up earlier for somebody else.
Lattimore, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
No, I'm gonna have to try to find it. Oh, where goes Rag?
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, 1, a 1, a 2, a 4, a 6, and a 7. Right now, it says we only have 1 7. So, yeah. So right now, as of now, we only have 5 picks. So I would almost say that my bet would I would actually be surprised if we picked at 29. I don't think we make a pick there. I think we are actively shopping that pick, even if we don't get what we would like to get for it, to add some more day 2 picks, whether that day 2 pick is in 25 or in 26.
Well, and I think, I think it would do well for all of us to remember. I'm seeing people on the internet. We had this feels like we had this discussion last year. And it feels like the fan base has forgotten about the fact that you got to fill out a whole roster. And yet again, just like last year, we've got a ridiculously low number of players under contract. Maybe a few more than we had last year, because last year's rookie class is still under contract. But think about the gutting that took place of everybody that was brought in by Ron Rivera.
60% of the roster got turned last year.
Yeah, and a significant number of those guys that got brought in as that new 60% only got 1-year deals.
Yeah.
Dante Fowler was on a 1-year deal.
Jeremy Chin,
who's already gone. Yeah, was on a 1-year deal. I mean, granted, we brought Ertz back and we brought Wagner back, but we're still missing guys that were on 1-year deals that may or may not come back, for us again. So it's going to be interesting. We've got there's a lot of roster building left to do here. It's not like, we only have a few guys.
The other thing I hope people realize, and I have always been a proponent of drafting. Keep your picks. But at the end of the day, it's an asset. And how you use that asset, whether you pick a player in the draft or you use them to bring somebody in and make your team better. We have now received a first-round talent at wide receiver, a first-round talent at offense at left tackle, and you could argue a first-round talent at corner. The book is not. I don't think the book is closed on Lattimore. I want to believe that guy's still got some juice. And while we've given up multiple picks, we haven't given up first-round picks to get those guys. So if you can get anything out of Lattimore, you can get anything out of Debo, and Tunsil is just what he normally does, knock on wood. Your team is that much better now than it was when we started the season last year, right? Like, because last year coming into the off season, it was Terry McLaurin and who? That was the question we were asking. It was, who's going to be your left tackle? You have to draft one early. You've got, you got to trade back up into the first round and get an offensive tackle to protect your blind side. Well, we have since now, to Paul's point, addressed quarterback, got his blind side protected, theoretically, knock on wood, got him another weapon, offensive weapon, to add to the guys that put up the top 5 offense last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm a big time proponent of building through the draft and drafting your guys, but at the same time, sometimes you got to strike where the iron's hot, and you're not going to get Laramie Tunsil talent at 29. It's just not going to happen. And they're not walking the street either. So you've got to be able to. Sometimes you got to give up assets in order to get that player on your team. Debo Samuel's. You're not going to find Debo Samuel at 29.
And the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, go ahead.
The Philadelphia Eagles have probably taken note today on March 10th that the gap has closed a little bit between us and them. When you think of some of the bodies that they lost today, when you think of some of the ads, when you think of some of the ads that we made today and with the Samuel trade, I'm not going to say that they're scared of us right now, but they've taken note.
The other part of that is this front office has shown us the ability to get guys after the first wave of free agency. We are in the Jaden Daniels rookie window. We are in you've got 4 years to spend money and do things where you're not restricted financially because you're paying your quarterback. So now's the time to make some of these more brash moves, get guys in here, because I think I don't think they're abandoning the philosophy, but I think they're really looking at what kind of a push can we make over the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
And I applaud them for it. And now, no, I didn't want to give up draft picks when we would have been trading. If we had done this in Ron Rivera era, I'd have been really upset because I'm not confident that we would have been good enough for it to matter. Now, you're good, and I think we're good enough that it actually matters. And I think that changes the way that you view it. So,
well, and I think it's telling that when we went out and got guys today, what did we go out and get? We got big bodies. We didn't get skill position players.
Right.
Debo was a trade, but he's really the only skill position player we're dealing with. Even Bates, while he's a tight end, technically a skill position player, Bates is really a
blocker
lineman, right? Bates is a small down lineman when he comes into the game. That's pretty much his job. So, we've been dealing largely in wide bodies, and I'm beginning to feel more like some of the NFL commentators that I actually feel like are doing real homework instead of just out there hyping specific agendas. Keep talking about Washington looking for a burner at running back in this draft. Somebody, an actual dangerous weapon. Maybe a guy who would be like a young Eckler instead of, a 30-year-old Eckler. Not that 30-year-old Eckler was bad this last year. He sure wasn't. And we had a couple of games we were missing. But think about how much more dangerous this offense becomes with somebody with a skill set of a Jahmyr Gibbs that's 21, 22, 23 years old, right? And I'm beginning to wonder if maybe they aren't looking for something like that in this draft. They're filling in the wide bodies in free agency. They made a couple of splashes. It wouldn't surprise me if we haven't done all the big work now that we were talking about doing, and everybody else that they bring in is second rung in terms of free agency. Maybe we don't hear much the next 2, 3, 4 days till the dust settles. I don't know. Who knows?
And to your point, Bob, I don't think I mean we'll get more into the draft pods as that approaches. We're 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
But those guys, I think there's some burners that can be had, and those are guys that are coming in. They're not being asked to be DeAndre Swift or Jahmyr Gibbs, where you're coming in and being a 3-down back and trying to carry a franchise. You know, you take a guy in the 5th, he's walking into this backfield. You might only see the ball. You might only see 10 or 12 snaps a game. But it's what you do with those 10 or 12 snaps that is going to determine who you are, because they have Eckler and they have B-Rob, and we just tendered Chris Rodriguez, you know, and I mean, hell, McNichols was contributing last year, you know what I mean? So I don't think that they're going to be, they're looking at that like it's a need, but they're not looking at a need like our season is hinging on our ability to add this player. Tunsil and the offensive tackle, I think, is the move that has settled the entirety of the offseason now. That now it's, all right, go get some guys. Go get some dudes. So as we wind this thing down, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, I'm gonna. Never mind. You're fine. I was just gonna say I'm kind of with John. I mean, I fully expect some. John isn't here tonight. Get better, buddy. But he's been talking for 2, 3, 4 days now about he doesn't believe we're done in the wide receiver room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, we can't be. We've only got 3 of them under contract,
right? But he expects some real movement there. And I mean, like I said, we only have, if you go out and take a look, we only have 54 guys under contract right now. That's it. And the bottom, I don't know, the bottom 12 of those, I've never seen them actually play a regular season down. So, they're guys that were on the practice squad. Kaz Allen is in the bottom 10. Sam Hartman is in the bottom 10. Mm-hmm. Some dude named Norrell Pollard. He's a defensive tackle. I have no clue who that guy is. Michael Wiley. Vilami Fehoko Jr. I don't see their names. These are names none of us even know how to pronounce. They're in the bottom, 10, 12 on the contract list. These are guys that are probably going to end up on the practice squad if they make the team next year. So, we've got roughly 40 legitimate names under contract at the moment.
And we probably have half a dozen of those that we would, as fans, wouldn't mind seeing get replaced.
Sure.
Your Andrew Wileys and your back of the half of the roster defensive backs. Anybody not named Sanders still, you know what I mean? Like there's arguments that people wanted 5 new defensive backs in this offseason.
Sure.
So as we look forward, we are only 9 hours into not even free agency yet, which is just bananas to think about how crazy things went today. Some massive news around the league that we have a whole nother podcast talking about all that. But I'm curious, guys. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but what do you want? What do you think happens next, and what do you want to happen next? And it doesn't have to be a long response. I'm just curious where your head's at now.
You mean in terms of free agency?
Yeah. I guess, Bob, you could double down on the wide receiver thing. I think we can all agree that
you know,
wide
I could-
receiver.
Yeah, I think we're that. But for me personally, what I would like to see next is them to address the defensive backfield. Even assuming we were going to bring Jeremy Chin back, I felt like we needed another corner. I would like them to have the opportunity to put Sen Ristel in the slot. If
Bob,
that's
sorry
what
to
they-
interrupt you. We've got breaking news. Your heart's going to be broken. The Saints are bringing back Chase Young on a multi-year deal. So he's not coming to Washington.
You know,
Sorry,
I
go
saw
ahead.
a lot of that. I saw a lot of that mess, and I never bought into it. I never thought Chase Young had come back to Washington. I didn't think Chase would come back to Washington. Not, whether
Not
or not
Washington go after him.
yeah, whether this front office would have brought him back or not is up for grabs, but I didn't think Chase would come back here. But the next thing I'd like to see him address is something to do with the defensive backfield. I don't know if they feel like, we already have the guy on the roster to take Chin's place or not, but I would like to see another legit cornerback to add to San Ristel and Lattimore, if we're being, just really honest about it. I said it during the regular season, and I stand by it. I firmly believe that with a quarterback that is as accurate and as quick in his decision making as Jaden Daniels is, we don't have to have household names at wide receiver. We don't have to have big names. We've got McLaurin, we've got Samuel now. They can fill that in with guys that we used last year or other guys that they're happy with who play, bit parts. I don't think we need another superstar. I know a lot of people are looking for it, but I'm not particularly worried about that position because I think the quarterback makes a significant amount of difference as far as how good, as long as they've got good hands. They don't have to be the fastest. They don't have to be the biggest. They don't have to be the best. They just have to be able to hang on to the football when it hits them. Look at Zacchaeus this last year. Dude's
I'm sorry,
I'm
making faces over here.
You're what?
Chase Young 3-year deal worth $51 million up to $57 million.
Jeez.
Am I missing something? Josh Sweat got 4 for $76. Chase Young's making the same thing as Josh Sweat.
First round bias.
Dude, what am I missing? Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
think-
You're fine.
I don't think you're wrong. I wouldn't mind seeing something in the defensive backfield. Just something to shake it up. If I had to circle one, though, I want another weapon. You know what I mean? And it can be a wide receiver, it can be or a running back, and it could be somebody that I don't need expensive. You know what I mean? I don't premier, but bring me a guy that runs a 4.3 that could use a change of scenery and give him 2 years, $11 million. You know what I mean? And just a guy that situationally, I want more guys that every time they touch the ball, they can take it to the house. That's what I want. Find me that. And what say you, Paul? What do you think, brother?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat the things that you guys have said because I agree with it all. If I can add a couple other layers to it, I would like to see, an edge rusher that we can bring in, someone who can get some pressure on the quarterback. Dante Fowler was a double-digit sack player for us last year. Granted, he was terrible against the run, but we have to replace that somehow, especially if he's not going to come back. So we're going to have to give that some consideration. We don't talk about it a lot because we have Jaden Daniels at quarterback, and it's not something you really want to have to think about. But the backup quarterback position is a very important position and a very underrated position. I would love if we can bring Marcus Mariota back. I think that he was huge in terms of Daniel's development and his ability to adjust to the NFL in his first year. Hopefully we can do something in that regard as well as we move forward here.
Just to build off that, that was one of those names I was looking for today. I felt like Marcus played really well this year when he played, and I thought he might generate some interest in the free agent market. Granted, there's been a lot of movement the last couple of days in quarterbacks. I mean, Seattle playing a shell game with Geno Smith and the Raiders, and then Sam Darnold moving immediately to Seattle to fill that hole. But I gotta tell you, I'm a little surprised that we didn't see some real interest in Mariota today. I was kind of holding my breath watching the wire, expecting to see something come over because I thought he played really well every time he was asked to play. Especially when you know that the entire NFL was comparing him to Jaden Daniels every time he played, and he still did well. So you would think somebody out there looked at that and went, "There's still got gas in this guy's tank. We want him." And did you guys pay attention to the numbers for other quarterbacks? Zach Wilson went to Miami to back up Tua. Well, dude, Mariota would have been a much better choice to back up Tua in my mind than Zach Wilson. And yet, there's no accounting for taste, I guess.
Well, not only that, the money. Have you seen some of the? I mean, there were guys brought in to be backups for upwards of $10 million a year.
Well, isn't that what we paid Mariota last year?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the money's like. I'm surprised Mariota might be. I'm surprised nobody brought him in for even more because he showed his ability very much so to be more than capable in the couple times that we asked him to come on the field, and maybe. That's why we haven't heard anything. Maybe they're gauging they're looking at the market because he's going to be here, and they're just trying to figure out how much he's going to get. Because I have a feeling that that they want him. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I would expect them to want him, and I mean, I look at Mariota and I look at the situation in Miami. That was really the team I was most worried about. If you want to know the truth. Those guys on the Raiders. I figured the Raiders were a question mark right up to the point that they traded for Geno Smith. But I looked at Miami and I'm like, if Marcus Mariota is playing second fiddle to Tua, they go to the playoffs last year because Mariota would have played nearly half the season. And in fact, I'm not sure Tua gets his job back once he's healthy. Mariota might very well have outplayed him all the way along, and I don't know. I'm a little surprised. I'm happily surprised. Don't get me wrong, because I want him back in a Washington uniform next year. But
well, I don't know if you heard, Eagles just traded a 5th round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah,
so the Cleveland Browns get Kenny Pickett, and it cost them a 5th round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I mean, the Browns are they? I don't know if the Browns are doing that to bring in Pickett to start.
Maybe
because,
what's his face is going to be out again.
Watson's still hurt. I did hear them speculating yesterday after they absolutely paid Myles Garrett that Bailey Zappi was like the only quarterback that they had on the roster. So maybe they brought him in to start. I don't know, but that's crazy. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, this wasn't going to be a super duper long one. A couple big moves. We got our starting left tackle. Hopefully, knock on wood, for the next couple seasons, protecting Jaden's blind side. I think it opens up a lot for this offense. You don't have to chip. You can release. Maybe that's why Bates wasn't getting the catches that we wanted him to get, because he was constantly blocking. Who knows? But I think one other note that came across the wire today, Commanders are hosting Michael Gallup, former wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, on a visit tomorrow. I don't think this is a flattering move. He just kind of surprisingly retired last offseason. So I think this would be a depth move. He could come in here and he could be your number 3, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know that I bring him in to be your opposite Terry primary outside guy, but maybe they know something I don't know. So, but
when
I
he's
guess we'll-
healthy, he's dangerous. And he's got some of that deep speed you were looking for, Derek. But when he's healthy is the kicker.
right.
You know, I had him on my fantasy team a couple of years. He'd light the world up for a couple of weeks, and then he'd be in the training room for a couple of weeks, or out for the foreseeable future. We'll see you in December, that type of thing, right? And
Any words on Michael Gallup, Paul, other than the fact that he has a cool name?
No, not really. You know, Bob alluded to it earlier. We need bodies. We need to fill out a roster. So, from that standpoint, it's not a terrible player to bring into camp. He's a guy who's got some experience. But at the same time, I think we need to get younger at the receiver position. If I'm not mistaken, I think McLaurin and Samuel are both 29. So we
Same draft.
we do need an infusion of youth in that room. So,
Well, not only that,
Samuel's a
DK just got hate, huh?
yeah, Samuel's a year younger, but yeah, 28, 29, and Gallup is 29. So you're not getting any younger if you sign him.
yeah.
So, with that, gents, I think there's a possibility we could be running another pod tomorrow, depending on if it's warranted. Obviously, if it's quiet, we'll reconvene next week. But if there's a reason to get on and mix it up, we will. As always, it's been a pleasure. If you made it this far, we appreciate you. Give us a like, a share, and a follow. Come on over to bgobsession.com. Hook us up with a membership. Obviously, we have all kinds of different things going on over there beyond just the message board, like contests. Right now, we have the on-the-clock draft pool that you pick who you think we're going to take. Points are awarded based on accuracy, and we do give out some pretty cool prizes and bragging rights. So,
That's
gentlemen,
another Paul special, isn't it?
that is a Paul special.
Yeah.
He had to rewrite an encyclopedia to come up with a scoring system. So I do not envy him when it comes to the end of the year when he has to calculate that. But we appreciate it. So if you've gotten this far, find us everywhere. And as always, I will end it by saying, that'll do, pigs. That'll do.